So my first experience of climbing probably would be when I was around 12 or 13. I'd seen some books of people climbing, thought, well, I can do that. So I found what I could essentially describe as a washing line type rope in my dad's garage, and made my brother come out with me. He was like 18 months younger than me. And there was a little quarry near where we lived. It was about 20 foot high. I threw the rope around the back of the tree and down the wall and made him hold on to the other end at the top, tied the rope around my waist and climbed up this, which probably was about diff. I thought, yeah, I'm climbing now. We did that a few times until the rope looked like it was going to snap, so we decided probably wasn't a good idea. And I remember this guy in Wigan, he said, I'll take you up to the lakes. And we walked up to Scarf Hell, and he went, right, tie that into your harness and get up there. It's like, what? So I think we did a mod or a diff or something. But then from then on, hooked, really.
Hello and welcome to Factor 2. I was prompted by Franco Cookson's headpointing article to think about this conversation I had about a year ago with Tim Lowe. Tim's a climber from Yorkshire. If you climb at Malham or Kilnsey, you'll probably know him quite well. He talks to everybody at the crag. Tim was the subject of a few photos on UKC just over a year ago when he fell off a route at Ilkley and broke his foot quite badly. This is two short stories, one about how Tim broke his foot by headpointing, and another about how he took a monster fall on the CAD back in 1992, which was one of the things that prompted him to take up headpointing in the first place. Hope you enjoy.
I got a bit cocky and tried to warm up on the CAD on site and took this, what is now infamous fall of about 50 feet. Yeah, I think I just probably had too many beers, or it was the last one I had that previous evening that made me not feel too good, but I sort of got my comeuppance a bit that day. So then I thought to myself, well, I can still on site, probably up to E5, but I thought anything harder, I sort of wasn't prepared to risk it on grit, where, the consequences of a fall could be fairly serious. And I wasn't doing the hardest stuff around the time, E6s and the odd E7, and I just got a lot out of that. Other people were doing it. I think if you're honest with where you climb and you're not spoiling anybody else's enjoyment or damaging the rock, then fine. So for me, headpointing was a completely different game, and really enjoyed the build-up, the mental process of that led up to doing a route and, getting focused and switching your sort of mind off in a way to anything that was external. And all of a sudden, 2 minutes later, you're at the top of a climb, and that sort of release of tension and that feeling of like, wow, that was great. Now I want some more. And then finding the next project, and yeah, it was great. And I sort of continued to do that over the years, and leading up to the fall 8 weeks ago. And I wasn't fazed by the route I've been on, and probably I would have on-sighted it back when I was 20, in my 20s or 30s. And it gets on-sighted regularly. It's not particularly hard, but it's tricky, and it's a little bit balancy and quite thin.
So the route that Tim fell off was shock horror at Ilkley, which is E6 6B. It's got some gear, but it's quite a big run out at the top. You can see the photos of his fall on UKC. There are links in the text attached to this episode.
I remember the day I went up to do it, and I top roped it before, and the conditions weren't right. And then I went back last year and top roped again and tried to lead it and fell off it, and took a fairly big fall, but it didn't hurt. So it fell about 20 feet. So it didn't faze me. So I thought, well, it's on the list. I've got to go back and do it. And I remember going up with a regular climbing partner, Jeff Gogarth, and we got to the crag, and there was a bunch of guys on. I just said, we'll go up to Rocky Valley. And anyway, they came up to Rocky Valley, and Jeff and I got a rope point, and we both top roped it. And it just everything felt right. I thought I've got a good backup team if anything goes wrong. A couple of people taking photographs. I thought, well, I want to do the route. I'm going to do it. Today's as good as any time. I got Jeff beeline, and Jeff's solid, absolutely solid, trust him 100%. Set off. Didn't even think about, and it wasn't one of these head points that I thought, well, I need to really focus that much. Maybe that was one of the reasons I fell off. But got to the gear. It's all pretty good gear. You're not going to deck out. Sort of one last little tricky technical move to go, and you've got to sort of get your body weight around the arete a little bit into balance, going for the last decent hold, and then, you know, you're literally at the top of the crag. I remember sort of moving round to this, got my right on this little nubbin type thing. It sort of just greased off, and I remember thinking, shit, here we go again, I'm off. Fortunately, John captured some amazing photographs, and were they worth it for the fall? No, maybe not, but I remember sort of, it's only, what, half a second or a second fall, thinking, oh, I'm safe, the gear's good, I've got Jeff belaying, you know, there's a bit of slack in the system, so I shouldn't be too bad. Anyway, came flying around the arete, and you've got to be careful, you've got to avoid this big crack, and I think I sort of caught the edge of it and took all the impact onto my right heel. And it was like one of those, oh, ouch, that hurt. But, okay. I looked at my leg and nothing was broken. So, lowered to the ground, took my boot off, and it was like, it doesn't look like a normal foot. But it didn't hurt, really. Anyway, cut a long story short, I got down to the path, ended up in A&E for 5-6 hours to be told, you've got a badly broken heel. I think I was lucky to grow up in a time when lots of new route activity was going on, from the mid-70s on grit all the way through different areas of the country, and there was a group of very talented people around at the time putting these necky routes up. And certainly the CAD was one of those routes that had a bolt done by Ron. It quickly got a reputation, and it's, compared to the really hard stuff, it's not hard at all, really. And you know, for a non-climber, you look at it and think, well, that's blank, it's dangerous, and it is. It can have pretty serious consequences if you're not careful. The rock is a little bit snappy, a little bit friable. You've really got to be careful. You know, it's one of those rock types that you can't take every hole for granted, and you can come unstuck. And it's where you can test yourself mentally as well as physically. I think, you know, these routes are very fingery, they're tough on your calf muscles and your feet, but they test your head. And for me, that's always been an important part of climbing. I'd just come back from a sport climbing trip to Spain, and I'd been on site in 7B pluses out then. I thought I was climbing reasonably well, and it was fairly early on in the year. I went down to North Wales for a weekend with Mike Owen and Elaine Owen when they were still living in this country. We stayed in Denny Holland, which is a wonderful place. Stayed at this guy's house, can't remember the name of him now. Yeah, we had a fair bit to drink and a few joints. Woke up feeling a bit fuzzy-headed. But we got this plan. We go down to North Stack. Plan was to do the CAD to warm up, and then something else on that, or wreath or something like that. From memory, I didn't even warm up. We just abseiled in, set off at the CAD, my mate Adrian belaying, and it was just good vibes, good laugh. Feeling a bit crap that morning, but conditions were good, the tide was out. And I set off at the start thinking, doesn't feel too clever. Little slings on spikes and stuff, and it took me ages to do that first bit, 20, 30 foot, and I thought, right, I'm getting into this now, and I'm going to move where you move right, and I got some gear in. The bolt was in at the time. I thought, shan't I? I'll clip it. Anyway, from memory now, because it's, 25 years ago, moved right past the bolt and started going up the wall. And I started getting into the swing of things. I think Mike was climbing a route to the right of me. I think he might have been on Wreath, something like that. And I started moving up and going up towards what I thought was a break. And I think Mike said, oh, it's not a break, don't jump for it. You need to get it properly. And I was starting to sort of pump out on my calves, and I've been on it for ages. And I thought, right, just make a bit of a lunge for this break. And I was well above my gear, probably 20 foot or something. And I lunged for this break, which isn't a break, and I hit it. And I thought, shit, I'm off. And I was like, I think I uttered the words, I'm going to die, thinking I'm definitely going to hit those boulders. I was so far up. So it's probably, 60 feet up. And I landed about 10 feet from the boulders. Your first reaction is to think, shit, I'm alive. And then you start laughing. And it's like, yeah, survived that one. But it really knocked the wind out of my sails. I remember getting top roped out. I think the following day we went to LPT. And I got on statement, and it didn't feel right. I think it really hit me more than I thought. But yeah, it's one of those things that I will go back and I'll do. But I definitely will point it next time. But I think that was a sort of, again, one of the points of my climbing career that, is big in the memory banks and certainly won't forget. In fact, Elaine sent me some pictures, I think last year, me on the CAD before the fall. And I look back at like the tights we had on and the gear we had, and it's like, crikey, it's like 25 years ago. But I suppose it was a good experience. You have to experience failure, and it can't all be success all the time, because, how do you know where your limits are? How would it affect you if something life-changing like that happened? I mean, I never dreamt I'm going to break my heel, but it's trivial in comparison. You adapt and you find ways around. And what's interesting is that a number of people that I know have had bad accidents in the last 6, 9, 12 months, and talking to them how they've rehabilitated and what they've done and how they've gone about things. And yeah, I suppose we inevitably get into these scrapes when we do a sport like climbing. We all know there's a risk there. You get to the point and you think, well, there is a finite amount of something you can do, but I suppose subconsciously we accept that risk. Otherwise, we wouldn't be doing it. You can make climbing probably totally very safe if you top roped everything, but what's the point? It's about having a level of risk, and that level of risk is different for everybody. If you try and take away too much of that risk, then I don't think there's a lot of point doing it, personally.
You'll be pleased to know that Tim's foot is more or less healed up now. He's out on his second ski season at the moment, judging from his Facebook pictures. He also seems to be climbing reasonably well. You've been listening to Factor 2 from UK Climbing. I'm Wil Treasure. Thanks for listening.